Checking in with Anthony and Glenn is brought to you by HD Supply.
It's checking in with Anthony and Glenn, teaching you to be the hotelier that you wanna be. It's checking in with Anthony and Glenn.
Welcome back to Checking In. I'm Glenn.
I'm Anthony.
And we are coming at you today. I'm very excited. We're at the Four Seasons Hotel, New York, downtown. We got our first ever official guest on the show, Anthony.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know. It's pretty cool. So from time to time, we're going to try to have on great and relevant guests that we think are really interesting, add to the conversation that we have here at Checking In. So today we got Tomas Carreras, who's the general manager here at the Four Seasons Hotel, New York, downtown. Welcome to the show, Tomas.
Thank you very much. Happy to know I'm the first one.
Yeah, so I heard your name, and the first thing I said, this guy's got to be Swiss.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the name is, if you pronounce it right, it's Carreras, and it's very Spanish. My father is from Malaga.
You should have told me that was a pronunciation, because I took Spanish for a lot of years. The only thing I learned was that rolling R.
That's right. So that rolling R, and the second is non-rolling, is just it's a disaster. But Spanish father, Swiss mother, grew up around the world, studied in Switzerland, and funny stories around the world.
So when you told me that it's our first guest,
Yes.
I didn't realize that. And I said, wow. But you kept on talking. And I said, wow, because not wow, like I'm so shocked that it's our first guest that anybody would say yes to being on this podcast.
Yeah, that too. And I knew you weren't saying wow because of me not being quiet first. Me talking too long, because I always talk way too much.
So this podcast is about building your personal brand. One of the things that's really important to me, when people from all walks of life, whether I'm in Europe, Asia, wherever I am, people always ask me, how? How'd you get to be, any level of success in the hotel business or on TV or whatever I've done in my career? And they always ask me, how? What's the secret? And I always say there is no secret. But I've been always true to myself.
Don't tell that to Oprah.
I've always been authentic. And whether I failed or succeeded, it depended on me. One of the things that fascinates me, my career has been one of independent hotels, independent operators, whether it be the Algonquin Hotel, the Lucerne Hotel, the Nickelodeon Hotel. It was always working for a family. I never worked for a big brand. And one of the reasons I never worked for a big brand is because I think I've been fired within the first 32 seconds of being hired, because I'm not a real good corporate guy. Because I say what I say and I say how I feel.
That's why this venue is so perfect for you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that's fascinated me, I've been a big admirer of the Four Seasons, and I've been a big admirer of people like you who've been able to be successful being a general manager at the Four Seasons. And people that aren't in the hotel business and don't understand how difficult it is to obtain the title of general manager at a Four Seasons hotel. I was talking to Jerry Anzarello at breakfast the other day. Actually, I think the president of the Four Seasons came over and said, good morning.
Could you let people know who that is that might not be familiar with
Jerry Anzarello was the president of Forbes Travel Guide, who's now taken a job in Saudi Arabia working for the king?
That's right,
Sounds
Al
good to me.
Salman.
Yeah, was he working for? Tell me.
Al Salman. Yeah, he just took over this huge project that is to kind of rebrand and provide probably more of a customer-orientated vision to the Saudi Arabian enterprise. Now, he's one of the most inspired leaders that I know.
He is definitely one of the most inspiring leaders I've ever met in my life. And I was devastated when I heard he was leaving Forbes Travel Guide, but he's staying on the board, which is great. And I'll be down wherever they have their next annual meeting. I will be there, and hopefully he'll be there too. But when I was speaking to him, he was because he ran, I believe, the Four Seasons in Austin.
That's right. He was
years
general
ago.
Manager, one of the youngest.
You're one of the youngest general manager. I think if you ask him, he was the youngest Four Seasons general manager, and he's from Brooklyn. He grew up literally a block away from me, working at the same catering hall I worked at as a kid. And he was able to maintain who he was and still work his way up through Four Seasons and other brands. So my question for you is, how do you take such a strong brand like the Four Seasons that everyone knows around the world, and basically you're tattooed to your forehead if you're a Four Seasons employee, because you have to walk the walk of a Four Seasons. How do you maintain their brand, that loyalty, but also your authenticity and yourself? So I guess I have two questions. One, tell me a little bit about your background and how you've maintained your authenticity in working for such a strong brand.
That's a very good question, actually, and we often talk about it. One of the interesting part when I met Four Seasons, I was at school, and a friend of mine said Four Seasons is coming to do recruitment.
Right.
And I had no idea who Four Seasons was. I had known Marriott, Hyatt, all of the brands.
What school?
Lausanne in Switzerland, EHL, which is Lausanne Hotel Management School. And during 3 days, every single friend of mine asked me, are you going to Four Seasons interviews? And
Right.
I'm like, who is Four Seasons? The best brand, they do the best, they are the best, they have the best hotel. And I was like, how do I not know that brand that everybody seems to know and that they say is the best? And I had gone to interviews and I had gone to presentation of different brands, and they were all kind of similar. And when I met Four Seasons for the first time, I was so impressed with how humble they were. Not a single time they mentioned we're the best. Not a single time they say we have the best hotels. Not a single time they say we are the most profitable, we are the biggest, we are this. But they always
So
cared.
I'm going to ask you a question. What in your childhood, what in the way you were brought up with your mom, your dad, whoever raised you, that Four Seasons being so humble, how did that relate to your childhood?
So it's interesting you asked that question. When I met with them for the first time and I spoke to people I didn't know at the time, and I know now they were presidents and CEOs and general managers, they spoke to me like my parents do. They were quiet. They were very...
So they just gave you dirty looks and used your middle name a lot?
That's right. No, they were really listening, and they were actually attentive and caring about what I wanted.
Right.
And I thought it's impressive. How does a company want to know so much about what is important to me when everybody says they are the best? I should be trying to sell myself to them.
Right.
The reason I asked that question is because you did something very important at that moment in your life. I always talk about life as moments. The way you were brought up and the fundamental spirit of your family was tied directly to your first interview and your first job. And that was important to you. You didn't go against your instincts. You was like, this feels like home.
That's right. And it's interesting because you could sense in a minute that those leaders that I was speaking with were actually really interested in the success I would bring to them, but also the success I would bring to myself. And not a single question or nothing they said made me feel that fear. At the contrary, when I came out, I said, I'm dying to work for them. And I would have done anything. And I was very lucky because, must have been 500 people that went to the interviews. They hired 5 people.
Wow. So you went through this experience thinking that they would help you become a better person as you helped reflect what their brand ideals were.
That's right. And, when I heard so much about how great they were, I was expecting that they would say the same. And the only thing they were talking about is, how great they could make me. And, that's incredible because that's what you aspire to be when you start working for someone that cares for you. And then, when I joined Four Seasons, everybody said, you're lucky, you're joining a people company. And I thought, it's funny, why a hotel is a people company? I was 19 at the time. And then I realized right away, you walk into a club of people that actually care for each other.
So I'm going to ask you a question. When you were in that interview and you said 500 people interviewed, but only 5 people got the position, that's 1%. That's like a Navy SEAL. What, and I'm not going to allow you to be humble. You have to ask this question, okay?
Under the mic now.
Why did you get the job? And don't give me the easy answers like, well, I was fortunate, I was lucky. What did you do in that interview that made you stand out?
And think of this as a public service to the folks that are listening so they can find success like you have.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, so I laughed when it happened because I got hired by someone that I could work afterwards for.
Right.
They asked 3 things. They asked to come out on time. They asked to be able to bring your scholarship grades and to be able to spend 5 minutes with them. So the first 2 were fine. I think everybody had it, but half of the class forgot their grades. And I think just that was a bit of, are you listening and can you do what we ask you? So I think, a big process is that. And then the second part is I had 0 experience. I had never worked in any hotel before. I just had twice 6 months internship.
Wow.
So it wasn't my experience that brought it. So they must have seen something in me that was not work related. There must have been either the honest answers, the genuine look, the passion, the interest. We talked about anything but work at the time.
What was the one thing, your mom and dad raised you?
Yes.
So what was the one thing, the one lesson that you learned as a child from your mom or your dad or someone in your family that prepared you to be ready for such an incredible company like the Four Seasons?
Well, I think, values. Everything about my education was value-centered. It's about doing the right thing. And I think Four Seasons it's very ethical. It's very about values, and it would always bring the values first. Money would never take over values. And I think I recognized that right away when I joined the company. It was a company that said, what is right is more important to us for the long term than what feels good at the moment or what looks good at the moment. And, from now I've been with Four Seasons for 19 years and they never changed. It's actually all about what is right. And it comes from their founder and CEO at the time, Isidore Sharp, who was someone that had never worked in hotels, but always did what was right.
And for those people who don't know, he's the legend. He is the legend. He is the standard for where we all work, basically. So I'm gonna ask you two questions. One, quickly, just tell me where you've worked in Four Seasons and when you were first a general manager.
So I started 19 years ago at the Four Seasons in Boston, where I did an internship of a year and a half. I had the opportunity, because I speak Spanish, to work in a resort called Four Seasons Punta Mita in Mexico. I did that for 2 years, and it was just right after the opening, so very interesting, especially going from a very senior, well-run hotel to a brand new hotel in a completely different part of the world. And then after that, we had just opened the Georges V in Paris. So as I was speaking French, they thought it would be a great hotel for me. At the time, I thought, studying in Switzerland, living in Paris wasn't that exotic. So I said, okay, I'll do it for a year. And I happened
Say that again. Say that again. For those people that come from where I come from, say that again. What's that?
Could you say it?
No, it's like when you come from Switzerland, Paris is not the most exotic place to
Let me
live.
translate. Hey, I was in Paris, working on the job.
Well, I went from Sheepshead Bay to Manhattan.
When they said to me, when I was in Switzerland, they asked me, where would you like to go in America to do your first internship? I said New York first, and they're like, it's maybe not possible. But
right, who doesn't want to go to New York, right?
And where was your first job in New York?
So this was my first job in New York.
How long ago?
So this was 2 years ago. I opened here as a hotel manager.
As a hotel manager?
Yeah, so my dream come true. Open a hotel, be a hotel manager. And in New York, that was the lot.
So how long did you work in Four Seasons before you were anointed general manager?
18 years and 6 months.
18 years and 6 months. So you had to work. And that's one of the things that people don't understand. That when you work for a brand like the Four Seasons, you have to earn it. You're in New York because you hear the fire engines.
Yeah.
You have to earn it every day. So 18 years. It only takes about 6 years to become a Navy SEAL out in the field. Okay? 18 years before they would hand you the keys to one of their prized possessions. And a tribute to you, the Four Seasons in Manhattan downtown is one of their premier locations, premier brands, but it took you 18 years to get there. When did you ever decide that I can't wait anymore? I got to get the heck out of here?
No, because, it's all about the journey. And I say, a lot of young managers come to see me and they're always very impatient. And my advice to them is no matter what, you'll get there if you want to get there. So the best is to actually enjoy every single trip you do, every single experience you have, because those make you the best. It's not going to the destination that is interesting, it's actually the steps that gets you there. And I think we forgot about that. If you're not passionate, don't work in hotels.
I think that's an amazing point that you make, that sometimes, you hear it with, the silly statements that we read on the internet and memes, but the truth of the matter is it is about the journey. It's not about that end result. And you should crave every single moment as you go along, because if you don't, you're missing out on so much enjoyment of life and understanding where your career is and where you could possibly head, as opposed to just be thinking about the end result. And then when you get to the end, my guess is it won't be as satisfying.
When I travel, I've done a lot of traveling the last couple of years, and people always ask me, "Oh, you fly so much. Tell me a nightmare travel story you have." Now, we've been to 48 states, 30 or 40 countries in the last 7 years, and a lot of that was done in the last 24 months. And I don't have anything bad to say about my travel, airline delays, rude people, because I take everything as an experience. It's like I am fortunate enough to get paid to go show you great hotels, not so great hotels, extreme hotels. how great is that I walk to an airport in Spain or in Albania or Rome, and people know who I am. People know my face, know my name. This gentleman we were just talking to, the room service waiter, he knew who I was. Like, how blessed am I and humbled I am by people knowing who I am. So am I going to really remember that I was delayed an hour? Or am I going to really remember that somebody wasn't so nice to me? Or am I going to remember how fortunate I am to be on that airplane going to Rome or going to Paris or going to Finland, Iceland, wherever I went? So I I try to live that every moment, that no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm doing this podcast or whether I'm flying somewhere tomorrow for a keynote speech, that I am humbled that somebody allows me to play in this field. And it seems very much that you're humbled by that.
No, and I think it's, the experience brings you to the role. You can go tomorrow and become general manager and know what you're talking about. And when I speak to the team, I welcome them and I speak to them about, what it takes to arrive to my position. I started cleaning rooms. I started, doing check-ins.
Right, when you were an intern.
Of course. Mm-hmm. And I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was the funniest thing to work with room attendants that were so kind and so genuine. So today when I speak to a room attendant, I know how she feels. I was cleaning beds. I know what it takes. I know it's hard. But I know you can have a lot of pride about doing it well. Okay. And I think it would be very obnoxious to be a general manager that is disconnected to the team, because the beauty is that they don't work for me.
Right. When you've been through all of that, though, I suspect that it connects you better to the folks that are working within your hotel, because they know you've been through that. So it's actually a give and take relationship, as opposed to somebody just coming in and telling them what to do.
No, absolutely. And I think nobody wants to work for someone that is not appreciative and doesn't have an understanding of all the efforts. Now, as I said just earlier, the beauty about hotels is the pyramid is really turned around. I work for everybody else, actually. Nobody really works for me, because my goal is to make sure that everybody has the tools, everybody has, a great meal, everybody has the best uniforms, everybody has the best training. And that's what I do all day. It's making sure that every single employee has the best work frame possible.
So when you're talking to a housekeeper, you're talking to a manager, whether it be a PR manager, whether it be a front office manager, they see you as the leader and they see you as the person that makes stuff happen. You're all powerful in their mind that you can make anything happen. I'm going to ask you a question that's going to kind of take us a little bit away from this track. And one of the things that I've always said is if the owner is happy, the employees are happy, because then we can go as general managers, go about having fun and go about inspiring people. If the owners aren't happy, then the employees aren't going to be happy. Now, the question I have for you is, Four Seasons, because they're people first and they're the journey first, and the profitability and the P&L and all that comes with believing in where we're going. How do you, as a general manager, as an executive, deal with that stress when maybe your hotel isn't performing to the expectations of an owner, but your philosophy is whatever it takes to make that guest happy and make our employees feel comfortable is going to happen? That's not always fiscally what the owner wants. How do you manage that stress or that?
So just a quick correction on the way I think things are. I don't think the owner is happy, the employees are happy. I think it's actually the other way around. When I look at my priorities, my dashboard, this thing that when you drive, you look at, because if you don't know your speed, your gas and all that, you crash your car. My dashboard, number one thing that I look at is my employees. And if my employees have everything they need to be the best, not to be the best because we push them, but to be the best because they're inspired to make a difference. Right. If the employees are happy, they look after the clients. When they look after the clients are happy. What do? They come back.
Right. That sounds like what Richard Branson always says, take care of your employees so they take care of the guests.
And it works, but I've seen it everywhere in 19 years. The clients come back, the director of finance is happy because the money is back. The marketing doesn't have to do anything because the job is done. Then the money comes back in. And after 3 to 4 years, your owner can only say thank you because the money is in the bank for them.
And I agree with that 100%. And I believe in that philosophy to my core. What I'm asking is, in 19 years, have you ever had an impatient owner?
Yes, we all do. Now, the beauty is it's not a short race, it's a marathon.
Right.
It's about the distance. So every sport that you do teach you that. If every time you get punched, you go down, you're not done for that sport. Life is like that too. You will get punched. You have, your heart broken. It doesn't stop you from moving forward. And the thing is, stay positive, do the right thing, and at the end, everything goes fine if you're doing the right thing. It's not about what you do one time in the future. Is what you do every day that makes the difference. So if every day you do the right thing, even though you have crises, even though moments can be bad, it always turns up to be good.
Okay, so that's a great attitude, but how do you stay focused on those really tough days to make sure that you're continuing to be the best person that you can be and be the leader that this hotel needs?
So I think the most important is that people need to know why they do the things they do. And I think one of the weakness of many people is that probably the general managers knows the goal, knows the direction, knows what he wants everybody to do, but he's the only one knowing that. So how do you get 400 employees behind that same vision? And if you go around companies and you say to any employees, why do you do what you do? Most of your employees would say, well, just to make money.
Right.
And that's the team that doesn't win. If you go to a team that wins and you say, why do you do what you do? They're all aligned behind one thing that makes them want to do more.
And that takes me to, because I think that is the only way to success. And it takes me to really the first question I asked you, is you aligned what you were taught in your house, in your family, with the hotel and with the company you work for. That alignment allowed you to truly be who you were as a child, as an adult. And I think what I hear all the time is, what you don't understand, Anthony, I work for this company and they're bad people. I work for that company, they don't appreciate me. And what I say is, you're in control of you. The only person that controls you is you.
Right.
So yes, there are bad companies out there. Yes, there are bad leaders out there, 100%. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to try to change them from being their employee, and all of a sudden, because of you, they're going to change their attitude and they're going to change their culture? Or are you going to take responsibility for yourself and what you've been taught and what you believe in, and go find someone that's going to appreciate you? So what you did early in your career was the catalyst to your success today, because you were allowed to be who you were. And so many people, whether it be in the hotel business, outside the hotel business, are in the wrong job, and they're blaming their company and their employee and not blaming themselves. And I always say this, and it's a little, maybe it's a little Brooklyn, but if your life sucks, you suck. And
Right.
I truly believe that if you're not in control of who you are, then why would you think somebody else is going to control who you are?
I think we're all free, and Nelson Mandela, made it very clear. You can go in prison and remain free. It's a state of mind. Now, the one thing you have is the choice, and a lot of people actually don't take the choice to look for the right company. I was very lucky because I did find the right company, and the truth is I've been 19 years in that same company. Another day I woke up thinking, is this the right company? It has always been, and it was my choice. I could have worked in companies that didn't have values. I could have worked in companies where money was everything, and I think I would have done 6 months and I'd have left. But again, it was my choice. Now, I see people at times being very unhappy in a place where they work, and you're right, they blame the company. The question is, well, if you're free and you can have the choice to work wherever you want, why do you stay in a place where it doesn't make happy? If you're not happy, then it's your choice.
Because they're scared. Because people are scared. They have financial responsibilities.
Yeah, right. And so, they don't feel that they can do what you're saying they can do. A lot of people, I think, feel trapped. So I think to get the root of the issue is, how do you get yourself out of that mindset so you don't feel trapped, so you can get that job that really reflects who you want to be as a career-minded professional, and then achieve that success?
That's right. And choose a company that allows you to be yourself and appreciate that yourself is good enough.
Right.
And I think if you find that, you are successful.
Well, and I think everything you talk about is about building your personal brand. Your personal brand very early on was values. That's what your family taught you. And you continue to be successful in the Four Seasons because your values were never brought into question, and you never had to fight your values against your company's values. So that lined up perfectly and as nicely as it could. But one of the things that people look to maybe this podcast or other podcasts they listen to is, yes, this is all nice and it's all, it's great. Passion changes everything is my key words, but I'm trapped. I have a mortgage.
Right.
I have 2 kids. How my boss is not very nice. I didn't get my raise. I didn't get my promotion. I financially cannot take that risk and leave. What do I do? Because my personal brand is suffering. Do you have any advice for someone like that?
Yeah, because when you feel powerless, everything in life seems so much harder, and getting out of that stress of feeling powerless is difficult. So, getting control back in your life. Any advice on that?
It's like everything. It's like, when you're in love with someone and the person doesn't love you, you can stay in that relationship and be unhappy, and it does take the same courage to break that relationship.
So we're talking about fear of change.
I guess, at times there is the fear of something we don't know. And
Right.
I think people rather suffer in something they know than actually turn the page and be in somewhere they don't. Now, the excitement in life is actually to take that risk and to see what comes around. And, for the people that do it, and I cannot say everyone, but most
Right.
of them had found actually it was worth taking that risk. And life is about living what is important to us.
What was your riskiest decision in your career that scared the living crap out of you?
Doing this podcast.
Yeah, probably. No, I mean, I always, I'm very trustful, and I have a very good star. And I always had said yes to most of the things that came across. And I lived in places like India, Mumbai, Bora Bora. And I always have thought, well, if it comes my way, I should say thank you and take the opportunity and see what it brings. And it always brought a lot of very interesting experiences because it makes you think and live things in a very different way. And I thought in terms of, you go to school and you learn techniques, but the true life you learn through experiences, and being able to be exposed to things that are different rather than choosing the comfort of living the same day every day was very interesting. Now, I remember crying alone in the room because I felt very lonely. I remember, having to worry because I didn't know how I could get friends again. When I worked first in Boston, I didn't speak English well.
Right.
So, during 6 months, I barely spoke to anyone because only people speak English, and it was a challenge. But all those was worth it.
See, and that's very interesting. You take a gentleman, like even me, right? I've been in this business 32 years, and you tell me I'm meeting the general manager of the Four Seasons downtown. I'm like, oh, I better make sure my shoes are signed, and I got to bring my A game because this guy is somebody because Four Seasons says he's somebody. And because I understand as being a guy in the business how difficult it is to obtain that position. So a gentleman in your position that has had this success, who's obviously a tough person, who's a skillful person, you said something that really resonated with me. You said, I was crying in my room because I didn't have any friends. Most people don't talk about their vulnerabilities. I can cry at a drop of a hat, and I can also be very intense at a drop of a hat. Talk about that. Talk about that vulnerability, and because I think that's very important to success, that you can admit here on our podcast or probably into an audience of your employees and say, when I went to Boston, wherever I was, I cried because I was lonely because I didn't have any friends. I showed my vulnerability, but I moved forward. That's very interesting in an executive that has attained what you've attained, to show that vulnerability. How important is that?
I think not only with the team, but with every connection you have with humans, the nature of what we do is we like what is real. And when you're in front of someone that isn't, you need probably 5 seconds to find out. And the beauty about being real, it says just be yourself. And if you just follow that rule and you are yourself fully, you usually connect with people much more because they appreciate that you are like that and you allow them to also be like that with them. So they will speak to you in probably a more trustful way because they know that you won't judge it because you have been weak yourself. They won't judge the fact that you fell down or that they fell down because you fell down too. I mean, we all have those experiences.
But what happens when they do judge you? See, this is what happens. I always talk about the 5-star baby and the 3-star baby. Right? I always tell people, I said, when you had a child, if you had a child, was your baby 5-star or 3-star? And they all laugh and they say 5-star. So what makes someone like you obtain working in a 5-star hotel, but somebody else work in a 3-star hotel and they don't feel like they're 5 stars? I always say, I've worked in 3-star hotels, I've worked in 5-star hotels. When I work in a 3-star hotel, I'm a 5-star person. I still wear my uniform right. I still have my shoe shine. I still treat people with respect. I don't need the Four Seasons or anybody else to tell me how to treat people.
I agree with that.
But what happens when you aren't being, people aren't believing in your brand, in your transparency, your humbleness, your authenticity? Give me an example of where you worked for someone, and you don't have to name names or places, where it was very challenging and you did something to change that situation to make it a positive as opposed to a negative. Because one of the things that's really important to people, especially young people who are listening to this, is I need examples. It's one thing to say being humble and build your personal brand and be authentic, but give me an example, a story of where you ran into a problem that was very stressful, but you turned it around to success, whether it be leaving, whether it be having conversation. Does anything come to mind?
I mean, everything, there's no life without having to solve problems. Going back to the first part of what you said about, 5-star, 2-star, 1-star, I mean, star is just a perception. I worked in places that has 0-star,
right.
Small boutique places. And I can assure you that today, I think they challenge any 5-star hotels in the world because they care so much for the customers. They do so many details. Everything is handpicked. So the starring is obviously,
It's more about amenities, not about the people that are working within the organization to create experiences.
It's a mix of both.
Right.
Now I think everybody in them has a 5-star approach. It's a bit like when you go flirting with someone, you can decide to be friendly, you can decide to be attractive, you can decide to be actually good with the person, or you can just decide to show up late, not have a conversation and hope that the person may like that. So what we do is about making sure we present ourselves to our best. Now, obviously, you will always find moments that are challenging, especially if you work with people. I remember when I traveled to Bora Bora, I was arriving from Paris, and coming from Paris is everything is right away. And you go to Bora Bora, and people, want to make sure that first they trust you and then they connect with you, and that your rush to make everything perfect is not their desire. Their desire is to understand why it has to be done this way and why is it so important and why is the guest looking for this. And I realized when I was trying to teach them to be perfect at operating, A, B, C, D checklist excellency, I was actually very wrong. And they told me that the guest doesn't care so much for that anymore. They used to meet clients the day prior to their departures, and they would do vanilla bracelet for them and flower crowns. And they said, well, we prepare that because when you go home, we want to actually have a bit of us with you there and that you think of us. And no Four Seasons has ever a standard that we do a bracelet with vanilla. But those people understood that, and it took me probably a good year and a half to understand that they actually were right. This insane drive to excellency by just being able to do the checklist A, B, C, D was meaningless. The true experience was about showing how much we love people, how much we care for them. And they understood how to do it by just doing one simple gesture. It was caring.
And most general managers would force themselves onto them in the way that you're used to doing it, as opposed to listening, being open-minded. I remember I did a show called 5-Star Secrets, and we went to Cabo, and we did the One and Only. Have you ever been to the One and Only in Cabo?
Yes, no, not in Cabo, but I know the brand.
Right, and of course you better know the brand, right? They're your competition. And one of the things they did was they put their hand over their heart, like a salute, and every employee put their hand over their heart, and what it meant was from the heart. Our service is from the heart. It melted me. It literally made me emotional. And as I left, there was 18 people standing outside the resort with their hand over their heart and said, from the heart. And I literally had tears in my eyes when I cried. I don't want to admit it, but I cried.
No.
And
I think we're going to change the name of the show to Crying with Anthony.
Yeah, well, people say I cry so much. But it was very emotional because it was very real. And those simple touches, whether it be a bracelet or whether it be a hand over a heart, is really what people want. Actually, as I came to this podcast, I was saying before, I walked in and one of the, I won't say who because I don't want to say where he stays, but when the person that I followed since I'm a kid is staying in your hotel, he was walking through the door, and I said good morning to him, and he went into his car and he left. And at that moment, I was like, and I don't get starstruck, I was starstruck. But he's just another guest. He's no more important than the guest that people don't know at the Four Seasons. And that's a person that bought it, sold it, and invented it. That person created something. That person everybody knows in the world. And he doesn't care about stuff. He's seen, like I'm in this beautiful room at the Four Seasons. I have beautiful room service tray in front of me. I have all the amenities of a 5-star. I've seen that before. That doesn't impress me. What impresses me is warmth, hospitality, true warmth and hospitality. So I always say, if you can build a hotel or any environment for people who bought it, sold it, and invented it, that's something. When I was at the Algonquin, we had a cabaret called the Oak Room, And they said, "Well, it's not making money." I said, "Well, because we're not touching people who bought, sold, and invented it. We're trying to take their money. We have to touch them." So we started to get people in the room that knew how to sing a song, to touch a billionaire, to touch a person that on Wednesday at 9 o'clock is spending $800 for a meal and for a cabaret. And then we started making money. Then we started doing well, and because we touched them. And I think that's very much hospitality. It's not
right.
Things. It's how you. It's not what you say. It's how you make people feel.
That's right. And it's difficult because if you look at most what we do is transaction. So the focus, how do you keep away from just being a transaction?
Well, this is great. I would love, we have to start to wrap up here, but I spend a lot of time when I do my speaking engagements talking about turning the transactional into the experiential. Could you give us some great advice so I could steal your stuff for the next time I'm doing a speaking engagement?
Yeah, of course. When I recruit people, I always look at how they connect with me, and I've given chances to people that had presented their resume to probably 50 hotels and they didn't even get an answer, just because they had never worked in a hotel. So recently we hired people that had schooling background. They had been teachers for young kids, and they are so caring and so genuine and so incredibly warm. You put them into a work environment where we say, well, we can teach you the transaction, but actually just being yourself is good enough. And they actually shine because they are the best at connecting because they don't know the transaction. So I think that the importance is, and one of our managers said that, and I love him. He says, hotel industry is a sport of contact. You contact with people. You have to connect with people. And if you know
I like that. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
If you like to connect with people, then that's it. You won. If you want to be good at transaction, you rather work in a bank probably because that's the only thing they do is transaction.
And I think one of the things I say all the time is don't hire experience, hire potential.
Which is exactly what Tomas was hired
and
for.
what you just said, coming from someone at your level that has your experience, that you believe that really makes me feel, it gives me faith, because I don't always have faith in a lot of general managers because I think they hire a lot of experience and they hire a lot of people within their the way they look and the way they are and the way they run their business. And that you at a hotel like this, that you can take somebody with very little experience but has tremendous potential and let them be them. That's like you said, this is a full contact sport. This is making people feel something.
I love it. But Tomas, before we wrap up, some final thoughts, maybe some advice that you want to give for folks that are up and coming that want to achieve this, what you've done in your career, and one day maybe be general manager of an amazing hotel.
So my advice, to make it short, is look at your career one day at a time. Do the right thing this day, and the right thing is to look after people, because only people can carry you up. You cannot go up on your own.
So we have something here at our podcast called Tell Me Something We Don't Know. So I'm going to ask you a question and tell me something that no one would expect about yourself. Tell me something we don't know. And we don't know a lot. What's something, like I juggle. Nobody knows I juggle. I'm a juggler.
Wow, really?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
I am.
Well, now I do.
Right. So tell me something I don't know.
Maybe I was the youngest entrepreneur when I was 6. I went to see my parents and I said, I just want 5 Swiss francs. I'm putting a company together and I think it's going to be very profitable. They didn't know what I was talking about, but I wanted some freedom. I went to buy some liquid spray and some tools to clean car glasses at the parking in front of my house. There was a hospital. And I realized that, investing $5 to get the equipment per day, I could easily make $25. And I made actually a very good summer.
That's great. I don't think Rudy Giuliani would have liked you in the early 1990s.
Yeah, nobody knows that.
No, but real quick, what was your parents' reaction?
They laughed because they thought, it's so fun to have a kid, that young that don't want to bother his parents to ask for pocket money.
But they supported you.
Oh, they gave it the 5 Swiss francs at the time was okay to give out. I give them my business plan, and it was funny because they saw me coming back. And when you're a kid, 25 Swiss francs per day is a lot of money.
and that in and of itself tells a story about you and who you are, and that you were supported. You just had to show up and you had to pay attention. You had to be on time, and you had to do what you said you were going to do. And this was at 5-6 years old. And then you come to the Four Seasons and you said, well, if I just do what I say I'm going to do, I'm going to be successful. So that's where it started.
Beautiful. Tomas, how about a good plug for the hotel?
So we're brand new, we just opened 2 years ago. We were the 100th Four Seasons to open, obviously in a great destination downtown. So obviously we're the young kid in the block. We are the new Four Seasons, and with the new Four Seasons approach, I would say that the proud moment for the Four Seasons Hotel New York Downtown was when the team achieved within the first 12 months of opening the very prestigious Forbes 5 Stars and the AAA 5 Diamonds Award. That was unexpected for such a young hotel.
Really, was it unexpected?
Not to me, but it's
Thank you.
but it seemed for the rest of the world it was.
Thank you. There's no way in my mind that you didn't think in the first 12 months you were going to get that award. And if you didn't, that would have been a failure to you. Not to anyone else, but to you.
That was the
I
mission.
can just tell alone just from the smart pressing of your suit.
Thank you. Four Seasons.
What's the biggest difference between a guest the day you started and a guest today?
I mean, they're very different people. They continue to want to have a perfect experience, but the delivery is very important to them. It's not what we do, is how we do it now that matters. And they are probably 30 to 50. When I started, they were probably 50 to 70. And people are younger. People want to have fun. People want to be connected. People want the environment to be buzzy. They want to actually be part of something that they feel they belong to. And you see, all those, Soho House and others, they've been built on that, on, this loyalty, this need to be part of something that excites you. And that's what we want.
How hard is it to get a guest from another brand to stay with you?
I always say to the travel agents, give me one chance and it's enough.
Right.
Right. And I think that's important because at this level, it costs a lot of money to get that one guest over to you. So when you get them, don't lose them, right?
That's right. One chance is enough because once they're in our hands, and that's what the team does, they just make them love us.
All right, excellent. I feel like we could talk all day long.
Then why are we not talking all day long?
Because we got to get Tomas out of here. He's got a big hotel to run and guests to take care of.
Before we wrap up, Glenn, I want to say this. It is absolutely a humbling experience meeting you.
Thank you.
I think I've been jaded a little bit, 32 years of being an independent operator and just working for owners and really kind of having to make things happen without a brand, without a guidebook, and just figuring it out by myself. And I maybe have always had a different feeling about Four Seasons general manager. One of the things I always said was, if you give a Four Seasons general manager another Four Seasons, they'll be fine. You give them a rundown hotel in the middle of the country with no plan, no guidelines, no standards, they will be clueless and they'll be licking their wounds and run back home in 2 seconds. After meeting you, I eat my words. I 100% eat my words. You can run anything in the world because you come from it in a very humble and team-oriented way. So all the preconceptions I've had, maybe of a Four Seasons general manager, you just threw them all out the window. So it was an absolute pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Tomas Carreras from the Four Seasons Hotel New York Downtown. Thanks so much for being here. And Anthony, thank you for being here. And thanks, guys, for having such great conversation. I think I've never talked less on a podcast in my life, and it was pretty awesome watching both of you guys. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I do, and we'll see you next time on Checking In with Anthony and Glenn.
It's Checking In with Anthony and Glenn, teaching you to be the hotelier that you wanna be. It's Checking In with Anthony